recording. May you be glorified in Jesus' name. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Building Hollywood in Media, Music, and Technology. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is C.R. Stewart. He is an award-winning author of the series Britfield. He's an expert in writing, film, media production, global strategy, and international marketing. And he's won over 42 awards for his trilogy series Britfield. Welcome to the show, Chad Stewart. So excited to have you today.
Thank you. Glad to be on. Very
fantastic. So I would love to hear your story of what led you to becoming an author.
Sure. Yeah, so I can, excuse me, I'll just give a quick background. I'm originally from Newport Beach, California. I was back east in Wellesley, Massachusetts for about 16 years and did my undergraduate in British literature, European history. I went on to post-grad work and then graduate school, and then I actually became an investment banker. Forgive me. And I worked for 3 Fortune 100 companies, and it just really wasn't a good fit for me at all. I'm a creative. I come from a creative background. And so it was actually 12 to 13 years ago that we got the idea for Britfield and the Lost Crown, or I got the idea for Britfield and the Lost Crown. It literally started, I was down in Providence, Rhode Island at this boring seminar. I think it was insurance, and I had to go, of course. It was on the weekend. And I was trying so hard to pay attention that I started to doodle. And so I doodled a circle, 3 lines, a basket, a boy and a girl, and I wrote The Boy and the Balloon. That was kind of the working title at the time. And it just resonated with me, this story. It was exciting. It found me. I didn't find it, if you will. And I went home that weekend and just on one piece of paper, just bullet points, I started to outline the story. You know, it takes place in England, present day, starts up in Yorkshire, Northern England. It's at this terrible orphanage called Weatherly Orphanage. It's about Tom, 12-year-old orphan. And he's been there for 6 years. He's been an orphan his whole life. And this is the year he's going to escape. And that starts within the first couple of pages, which I think is really important. It's not a story about an orphan. It's about getting out of the orphanage. And within 20% of the book, they've escaped. And so he's not going anywhere without his best friend, Sarah. And somewhere along the lines, they commandeer a hot air balloon and start flying all over England, Oxford, Windsor, London, finally down to Canterbury. But they're relentlessly chased by the illustrious detective Gowerstone, who's renowned for capturing runaway children and missing orphans. And so I sat down, took me 4 years, 2,500 hours to write Britfield and the Lost Crown. And then officially from concept and doodle to launching, it took 10 years. 10 years of hard work,
Incredible.
dedication, commitment, frustration, failure, struggling, depression. I mean, everything that you would go through. Like, you've been given this vision. And I was given that vision, if you will. From that doodle in that weekend, I was at a friend's house for dinner, and I had just had this one page of bullet points, and it was at that moment I knew what this was going to be, which is very interesting, you know, because it's like
Wow.
I didn't come from writing novels or fictional background from that in that sense. I'm not married, I don't have kids, but this little did I know this would take the next quarter year of my life, 25, 30 years, and that this would be not just a national movement, but a global movement in literature, literacy, creativity, education, media, and movies. And so we officially launched August 2019. And since then, it's become a bestseller. It's the top 1% of all books ever published within the same time frame, if you can imagine. One of the most awarded books in fiction, as you already noted. And it was fun. We kicked it off. It had always been my vision to be on the road and get out to my public. It's like everyone's like chasing after the bookstores and retail. Retail was like at the bottom of our list. It was the last place we wanted to be. I always say it's like, why do I want my book, you know, in a bookstore competing against 10,000 other titles? So we started a national school tour. I drove 9,000 miles, visited 23 states, presented to over 200 schools in front of more than 40,000 students. And it was everything from public, private, Christian, Catholic, charter, and even homeschool. And everything from 430 students, 4th through 8th, at a top private school in Los Angeles. It's actually Oaks Christian. It's like one of the top schools up there. It's where all the Hollywood stars send their kids.
In Westlake?
Pardon?
Was that in Westlake Village?
Yes. Yeah.
My little cousin Grace went there when she was younger, and I know about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Neat.
Totally cool. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing too because it's a Christian school with that sort of, if you will, dedication. I actually met the founder of it too through the process, and his daughter of all things. But yeah, and yet it's a top school, so you got like Will Smith, Tom Cruise. I think some of the kids went there and stuff. But to a small little public school in Iowa, to all girls school in New Orleans, all the way up to Memphis, Tennessee. So it was incredible.
Wow.
And it was through that process too that we not only were we selling a ton of we sold over 20,000 Britfield books to the school tours, and if we have time we can get into the publishing industry, but how much that actually is. Most published books will sell no more than 300 to 400 books within their lifetime, so that kind of puts it in perspective. And that was just on the tour. And but it was just great because I was really interested in the kids and finding out what are they reading, what do they like, what's school like. And for me it was like a big research project.
Right.
And from start to finish it took about 18 months. It wasn't like it was constant. We do a section and then I come back and then we do another section and stuff like that. And it was actually in March of 2020. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, just did 4 schools back to back, Monday, Tuesday. And that's when this whole fake thing had happened and we had to drive all the way back. But it was just fascinating. I'd get there about an hour early. I'd love to talk to the librarians, talk shop, about books, what are kids reading. That's when we found out about AR, which is accelerated reader, because a lot of schools adapt that. And so we got into that program and they generated a test for book 1, book 2, and I think book 3, which is cool. Puts us in that arena and stuff. And then, the teachers and then really the kids. And so that, I'd give this one wonderful presentation, very engaging, very dynamic, great PowerPoint. We had some trailers. We had like a trailer for Star Wars, because I was talking about story. I was talking about the importance of creativity and the importance of storytelling. And I was saying storytelling isn't just about writing, but it's about communicating. And I said communications is one of the top 3 skills in the world. So, whether you want to write or not, or you think of yourself as a writer, you're not, you're a storyteller. And so I'm kind of trying to engage them, because most kids are like, I don't care about writing. And I was like that at 12. I was like, what do I care about writing? But it was incredible. And I'll be honest, I never had an issue or one single problem at any of the schools I went to. You could hear a pin drop after 45 minutes. Wow. And we get to the Q&A section and all of a sudden, just hands come up, and it's like it was just so much fun because it was encouraging, and probably in some ways, probably the first time a kid had enough gumption, if you will, or courage to like answer. And I'd say, oh, that's a great question. Oh, I never even thought about that. I'd be walking around and just engaging them, and I had fourth graders said, does the protagonist have to be a person or a human? And I thought, what a great question. It's like just zingers out from 4th, 5th graders and stuff. But it was
cool.
Yeah, so it was really, really cool, very engaging, and I learned a lot, just about education, about children, what children are reading, how often they're reading. Again, just a ton of knowledge. Sometimes I'd be doing book signings for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 80, 100 students, if you can imagine, and just be engaging all of them all along and just encouraging them and writing really encouraging, things like, never give up and, keep to your dream. And it's interesting too, because I think what made it so engaging is, I was very authentic. I wasn't there peddling something or trying to sell something. I was there because I cared about them, and they engaged with that. And I told them, I start with one of my favorite quotes by Victor Hugo, and he says, "No standing army can defeat an idea whose time has come." And that's where we are as a nation. Wow. That's where we are as patriots, as Christians. And this is where Britfield is. But there is no standing army out there. We have no competition. We don't need anyone's permission to excel, to succeed, and to build our global empire. And anyone that's standing in the way will be dust. And so and so I use that, and I say, I had an idea 10 years ago, and I tell a little bit about my story, and I say, all of us have ideas, and sometimes you have this great idea of something you want to do, and you have the right idea but not the right timing, and it might take you 3, 5, 10, 20 years to realize your idea or your dream. And I say every overnight success takes between 1 to 2 decades. Fact. And the difference between a hobby and a profession is about 8 to 10,000 hours. And I'm telling that to 5th graders. But the point is it's honest and it's real. I'm not there with some pie in the sky, you can do anything you put your mind to, and all that other kind of, bunk, And I tell them the hard work that I went through, and they're resonating with them, and I'm planting those seeds. And so it was exhilarating. It was amazing. And that officially kind of launched the Britfield series. And so book 1 takes place in England. It's 384 pages. Took me 4 years, 2,500 hours to write. And I think what makes the series in book one in the series so engaging and so powerful and so timely, that's actually book four. We can come back to that. Is
Wow.
is number one, takes place in present time. So you have like 90% of the industry saturated with this fantasy, witchcraft,
Right.
demigods, occultism, vampires, superheroes, and it's just frankly, it's all nonsense, and it's done very specifically for two reasons. One, disconnect kids from reality, and number two, make them feel less than they are. That's the reason. That's the undercurrent. Because it's like if I just had magical powers, if I could just fly,
Right.
if I just had a wand, and that's what they're thinking. And whereas the truth of the matter is, the enemy is always the masker of truth, right? The father of lies.
Right.
The truth is all children are amazing. All children are gifted. All children are creative. They're all born creative. All children have amazing purpose and reason to be here. They have talent, and that's what the Britfield series is inspiring. That's what we're inspiring, and so kids can engage and resonate with these books. And so, book one's in England. We incorporate geography, history, art, architecture, and culture. It's based on family, friendship, loyalty, courage, hope, and faith. And we intertwine the four C's: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. I mean, I don't know of another book series that does this. And if there is, great. But really what we're trying to do with the Britfield series is elevate literature. So our youngest reader is 7, oldest reader is 93 years old. 55% of all our reading audience are adults. And we are having worldwide impact throughout the States, all the way to England, to Germany, to New Zealand, to Australia, to South Africa, to Brazil, to Italy, you name it. And so that's kind of a quick overview. Book 2 takes place in France. What's great is Thomas Era 12 in book 1. Book 2, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, which you can actually just see just a little bit there.
The rise of
Takes
the
place,
lion.
yeah, it takes place in France. It's now 6 months later. Tom and Sarah, 13 years old. And it's really important because I age them by 1 year in every book. And that's book 2 was launched in July 2021. And it's 474 pages. And then book 3, we launched in September 2022. And it's 575 pages. It takes place in Italy, and Tom and Sarah are 14. And then we're just getting ready to launch in 2 months in October, book 4, Britfield and the Eastern Empire, which starts in Vienna and ends in Russia. And that's coming in at 460 pages. And it's interesting with book 4, which is our keystone in the 7-book series, is we actually include 11 different countries. And so book 5 will be Asia, book 6 will be South America, and then book 7 will be the United States. I'll stop there for a minute.
Incredible. I mean, I really feel like you have a mantle of C.S. Lewis meets Walt Disney meets, the creators of I want to say Harry Potter, but I think better than Harry Potter, because Harry Potter, like you said, is steeped in the witchcraft and the occult.
Yes.
And, I love the point you made about how every child has value, and
Absolutely.
how they all have dreams that are important because God put those God dreams in our hearts, and they are for a purpose and for such a time as this. And it's just so true. And I have a son. I am a new mom. My son's now 21 months, but so
That's
he's
cool.
almost 2, so he's not going to be a baby for much longer. But I can't wait to have him read your book series. And I'm an avid reader. I love books, and I already started reading. I read chapter 1, and I'm in the middle of chapter 2. So
Okay.
it's just really interesting. I love how it's just like so detailed. And just for the listener, you guys have to get his books because they're just so well written. They're so detailed. And not only that, it's a spirit of excellence that you carry. And I can really see that throughout the writing, and just I can envision every scene. I can't wait till the movie comes out, because I feel like, just how you're going to be able to express the cinematography and the storyline. But there are reasons that people are readers. Like, some people prefer the book sometimes over the movie, so there's
Sure.
different people, and there's different types of recipients of the story. And so it's really neat that you get to dive so deep in each character. I know that I've only, read like the first 2 chapters, but it's nice to know that, like, there are still great writers out there. And
Mm.
you remind me of like a C.S. Lewis, a modern day C.S. Lewis. And it's just so valuable. And not only the fact that you're excellent in your craft, but not only that, what I appreciate is that you are hands-on with your readers and with the children and the kids. And now more than ever, there is a war on children. I just did on my other program called Truth News, which is on Frank's speech. I talked about the war on children and how there's a lot of the desensitization, there's critical race theory, then there's the whole LGBTQ agenda, and they're pushing these sexualized agendas on children. And also what comes to mind is the drag queen storytelling hour. And so now more than ever, I believe that we have a need for Christian authors. And I'm an author too, and I did a book called Daughter of the King: How to Find Your True Royal Purpose and Identity. So I'm all about like encouraging the young people to find their purpose and find their identity. And I talk about Queen Esther, but I mean, just the motive and the determination to get to the students and get to the young people. Like, I love that you have that humble heart, and I really believe that you're going to be flung into promotion. And I mean, I know it's already happening. I'd love to hear about your movie that you're coming out with. I mean, God is so awesome. He's already promoting you. Do you have any news about the film or when it goes
Yeah,
into production?
lots of news, lots of updates, and it's funny too. One of my favorite quotes is a combination of C.S. Lewis and Dan Brown. I thought that was pretty cool. But I got this comment a couple weeks ago from a woman, older woman, like 40s, 50s, that read it. Goes, "I love the Britfield series." She goes, "It reminds me a lot of James Bond, but with a bigger cast and a greater purpose." And I thought, how cool is that? Like,
Wow.
just a great summary, like in 2 sentences. She like really captured it, because it is. They're fast-paced adventure series. I mean, there's no fluff. You know what I mean? I'm very strategic. And just to jump back for a second, you asked me about sort of where I came from my writing, and I got into writing really when I was 18, and it was script writing. And I was really, because I've always been fascinated with Hollywood and or filmmaking, let's put it that way, and that creative arts and theater and acting and the whole bit and the writing. And so I was writing probably for decades, movie scripts, and working with professionals in the industry. I had, this is my hobby, if you will. This is what I enjoyed to do. This is my creative outlet. But it taught me the craftsmanship of storytelling, and it's very different. It's like night and day from writing a novel or book, because it's based on the 3-act structure. If you have a 90-minute movie, you have it 90 pages, give or take. And so it means every page represents a minute. So it teaches, like, so if I'm writing a 90-minute movie, I don't have 120 pages. I don't have 150 pages. That's a mini series. So it teaches you like story, I mean, absolute raw core story, not fluff, not going off on tangents, just focused on the story and telling the story. I mean, if it doesn't belong there, if it doesn't push the story forward, if it doesn't move the story forward, you get rid of it. And so it teaches you that technique. You start on the action, you end on the action. You never have more than 3 to 4 lines of description in a script. You don't get big paragraphs and stuff like that. That's what the art director does. That's what the director does, right? And so it's all story, all movement. The dialogue is sharp, and usually one of the best techniques, if you're kind of on the final edit of your screenplay, is to probably nip or get rid of that last line, in every scene, because it's almost like, "I'll see you tomorrow," and then it's like, "Okay, bye." You don't need "Okay, bye."
Right.
"I'll see you tomorrow," end. You know what I mean? Or that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden just tightens it.
Yep.
And so and Downton Abbey, if you're a fan of,
I love Downton Abbey.
Yeah, phenomenal series. I tell people, if you're interested in story writing, watch Downton Abbey. One of the most exceptional series ever written. Exceptional storytelling. You've got someone that's balancing 15 to 16 different characters in every episode, and they're doing it marvelously. And you're as enthused with the royal heiress as you are with the maid in the kitchen. Yeah, or the butler. I mean, and that's a great example of they call it entering late, leaving early. Right? Entering late, leaving early. They always start on the action and they end on the action. Wow. They don't waste words. They don't waste time. And then so you just have this high octane, fast paced series. and I'm a big fan. I lived in England off and on for 2 years, British literature major. So of course I'm going to love Downton Abbey. But I mean, that was like a worldwide success, and I love it. And it's like takes place 100 years ago. It couldn't be more in some ways irrelevant, but it's great storytelling and history
Right.
is interesting. So, but I just want to give a real background on that. So that's kind of where these high octane, fast paced stories, came into play, and that's why I've had 12-year-olds that have read Britfield and Lost Crown in 5 hours, and it's not because it's simply written; it's just the way that it's written. Um, I've had in book 3, I've had kids that have read it in a weekend. It's 575 pages. I couldn't read book 3 in a weekend. I mean, literally. So it's just I pull them in, I pull them in, I pull them in. I keep
Yeah.
building. It's layered.
The
Yeah.
way that you write, it pulls you in, and I just wanted to keep reading it. I was like, it's just so fascinating, and you're like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And it's just exciting. And so I think that you're going to get it's going to be a wave of kids and young people that are similar to they're craving an outlet to escape. Some people, they like watching movies, like I said, but for the young people, they kind of have to read for school. And it's
Sure.
out of all the selections, I mean, it's I love the positive message. I love how, and you even went to a lot of these locations, you said, from the geographical perspective, the educational perspective.
Yeah.
You want to refine literature, and do you have any feedback on that point of view?
Yeah, I lived in England off and on for 2 years, and all the places they travel in the story up until now are places that I've been. So all the places in England and France and Italy and even Eastern Europe, except Poland of all places. I haven't been there yet, but it really brings in the fun and the authenticity, and it's why I choose the locations or the streets at Oxford or Christchurch, Oxford, where they meet Oliver, this young student, and just I've walked that campus. I've been there, walked the streets. London, they crash in Hyde Park and into the Serpentine Lake, and they're walking in Mayfair along Bond Street, and they have tea and lunch at the Brown Hotel. It's really there. You can go and visit the Brown Hotel. They stay at the Duke's Hotel in St. James. You can go there. The Duke's Hotel is still there. I mean, these are like authentic, classic places that have been around for over 100, 150 years.
They're like landmarks.
The landmarks, yeah, and so it's engaging kids with things that are real and historical and geography and art and architecture. Always include wonderful architecture or art, especially like in book 2, they sneak into the Louvre Museum. And so obviously I'm talking about some of the arts, works of art, and then they go down to the basement and they find this secret place and stuff. So it's a lot of fun, but I'm always going that extra mile, especially in Italy. Oh my gosh, I go crazy.
Wow.
To bring it, there's a great scene where they're sneaking into a place at night, and it's where they house the famous David statue by Michelangelo, and it's dark, and Tom's flashing his light. It's also he sees it, he springs back, he sets off the alarm because he's like,
oh, incredible.
But it's a great way to get it in, you know what I mean, and let kids know about all this masterful artwork and architecture and history, and bring in history, and I make history interesting, going all the way back to the Norman times. And I don't drown it out with details. I don't drown it out with history. I always remind myself it's not a travel book, it's not a history book. Right. But I incorporate enough of it. I blend it in to make it interesting and fun and real, and it drives this story and this narrative of Britfield and this lost monarchy. So.
That's fantastic. I was going to ask you, do you include Bible prophecy in your books, or do you just do you just use research such as AI? I know that many believers are aware of the New World Order.
Sure.
We know about the World Economic Forum, which is a real forum and organization. And what about the coming digital currency? Because I know you touch on a lot of these realistic topics that are important for people to be aware about.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a lot of it's in there because it fits the narrative, and I've been relearning history for 12 years. That's the way I like to say it. With some great alternative media, which is really the new media, and real books and real history and real commentaries and real researchers and I think everything started me off maybe 12, 14 years ago with a book called The Bilderbergs. And I was reading it and I was like, whoa. And that really got me going. And so I was absorbed in it, but had nothing to do with Britfield per se. And yet the story with Tom and the Britfield dynasty and what is it? And did it actually exist? And why is it no longer here? Or is it? and what happened to it. And it blends in beautifully. And so you're introduced to the word, the committee, that are kind of the shadow government, these people behind the scenes that
Right.
pull the strings. And you're introduced to it in book one. And then you really get into it in book two. The committee is based on the Committee of 300, real group, real place. And so a lot of that is interwoven throughout the story. And so it's like, if you want a wake up call, it's in there. It's in the whole series, and it's because it naturally fits. I know that we got into quantum computers and the D-Wave computer system out of Switzerland that's captured everybody's information worldwide. We get into that in book three, and how the committee is just about to go online with a system that incorporates everybody's information, and they're going to introduce this thing called social credit scoring. Gee, what's happening in China right now? So it's like, this stuff's like, it is cutting edge. I remember when book two came out, 3 or 4 years ago, people were saying, "What are you, prophetic?" And you mentioned that, but it's like, I'm like, no, I just do my research. It's like, I know we know their plans. It's like, it's right out there if you look for it. It's like there's nothing unique about them, frankly. And so so we could talk a little bit about book four, because book four is lit, and it's very interesting what happened Monday, because book four is Britfield and the Eastern Empire, and so starts in Vienna. Thomas, they're now 15 years old. And there's always a story that it's like the goal is to find the Britfields, and the committee's after Tom and Sarah and someone else. I don't want to give anything away. And there's a group called the Resistance that's protecting the Britfields and protecting Tom and Sarah and stuff, which is, it really derives all the way back to the Resistance in France. And you're introduced to that in book two. It's just beautiful. And so and they're the ones that are the patriots. They're behind the scenes. They're stopping a lot of things that are happening. Kate's this savvy, 24-year-old tech hacker that's getting the word out and exposing these places. And it's like they've got a hit on her and stuff. And yet she's really smart now. It's just so beautiful how book one goes into book two, goes into book three. And so now you're at book four, and the main theme of this, and there's always a countdown. And these books always happen over 7 days, which is interesting. So it's kind of like starting at like this early morning and then within 7 days. And so I do, like some books, it's like over a semester, or some books is over years. Mine is like fast paced, 7 days. It's never at the same location. They never sort of circle back to this house or this apartment. They're always moving from one place to the other, because they sort of have to. And I think it keeps the action moving. It keeps you a little off balance. You don't know what's happening. But the main theme in book four is that check this out, the committee, who owns most of the Fortune 500 companies, is using a new quantum computer system with quantum encryption and AI technology to crash the entire financial system and stock market, so they can wipe out trillions of dollars in wealth, buy all the stocks at pennies on the dollar, and then introduce a one world digital currency. And those are the words, one world digital currency. What just happened Monday? So, and that's a taste of it. But I'm just, what happened Monday. But I mean, and I wasn't following the news. Someone called me and said, "Oh my God, this is what's happening. Japan just tanked, worst it's ever." You know what I mean? And I'm like, there you go. So it's like, and books already written.
Books are relevant. They're relevant to culture. They're relevant to society. They're relevant to our actual lives.
Yes.
And what's been the response from I know you said the kids are in love with the books. What about the parents and the teachers? Are they just raving over the books?
It's worldwide. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because a lot, kids don't necessarily have access to emails. So it's not like I'm getting 12-year-old feedback. I'm usually getting it like they'll get it. They'll write something and their mom will send it or something. I've received thousands of letters, which is amazing. Thousands. Yeah. And pictures from Britfield and their interpretation is so cool. And at one point, when we move into a bigger office, I'm going to hire, actually, I'll probably just hire like a school to do it or something, to like just have the walls filled with the pictures and then behind a plate glass or something. You know what I mean? Just really cool. Like, that's my artwork. My artwork is the kids' artwork and their letters and stuff. But no, it's amazing. I mean, I remember a couple of months ago, we got some feedback from an 82-year-old woman in Canada. She goes, "I just love these Britfield series." I got feedback maybe last year from we get it all the time. I'm just giving you perfect examples, but woman in her 40s in the Netherlands, and she goes, "I love the Britfield series." She goes, "I've never read anything like it," and she goes, "I can't wait till you guys are here." And she's willing to like spend $40 to $50 for us to ship a paperback book to her. to the Netherlands. Those are the kind of things that's happening and the impact that we're having. And it's interesting too that with the kids, I received a letter a couple months ago from a 13-year-old, and it's 2.5 pages, really well written. And I'm sure her mom did a little bit of editing,
Right.
but she was homeschooled. So she's a smart kid, right?
Right.
She's actually well educated because she's homeschooled. And she
Exactly.
goes, some of her questions were, is the committee real and our secret societies real? Right.
Wow.
And so the point is, like I'm planting seeds,
Mm,
and the whole gist of the books isn't to sort of get into this stuff. It's like what you do and all the other
right.
media, like, let them go down the rabbit hole, but I'm touching on it and I'm incorporating it into the stories because it's real. Quantum computers and AI systems, that's real. That's been around for a long time. D-wave computers, all this stuff that's been around for a long time. In book 2, we dive into transhumanism, the mixture of machines
Oh
and
yeah.
humans, and actually the incorporation of and it's very short. It's like a paragraph or something.
Right.
So talk, right? So like I'm not going down that road or that rabbit hole, but I'm touching on it because it's real and it's relevant to the story. I'm not trying to push it. It's relevant to the story, and it hits because there's this bad guy. Almost goes back to James Bond. He's kind of like the 6'6" bad guy. And he's just got this insane strength. You know what I mean? And so like I think it's fun. Inspector Fontaine and Detective Gowerstone, who you'll find out in book 2, are talking about it, and Gowerstone's kind of aware of all this stuff. He used to work for MI7 for 10 years until he basically got out of it. And he talks about transhumanism and mixing animal DNA with human DNA, and for heightened vision or strength or quicker wounds and stuff. This is all real. Stuff's been around for decades. You know what I mean? So people are like, oh my gosh, really? Well, read a book. Do your research. It's like it's out there. It's like
do your research. That's what I tell people all the time. You can't believe the mainstream media anymore. You have to do your own research. And this is the Great Awakening. God is waking people up, and he's going to use, like, this is why it's called Building Hollywood in Media, Music, and Technology, because God is going to use books and films and music to awaken, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ's light will shine on you. Isaiah 60, arise and shine, for your light has come, for there's grave darkness over the earth, but arise and shine. So God has given us the light of Christ, and we are to shine that light. And we also are the salt of the earth, which I believe you're very much in tune with that, because you're sprinkling salt in your books. You're not overloading them. You're not dumping it on them.
no.
And you're not pushing, that, but you are informing them. And in a sense, you're prophetic, because a lot of Bible prophecy talks about the end times and what's going to happen, like the one world order. It's going to be a cashless society. There's some nuggets in the Bible, in the Word of God, that talks about end times prophecy and what's going to happen, and how it says in the last days knowledge will increase. And I believe with the technological advancements, knowledge has increased, because with the touch of a button, you can go to Google and boom, you got the information in less than 0.2 seconds. You don't have to go to a library and take 5 hours to figure out a subject. Literally, and now, like as you mentioned with AI, I mean, the world is just going to be completely different. So this is super fascinating.
Yeah, we talk about the dangers of AI, but it's funny too, because you talk about that. Like I was just thinking back, I was laughing because it's like, can you imagine like the 1970s and stuff, or even the 80s? When an author was writing a book, and it's like you'd have to go to the library, and like, I mean, just the time to find the catalog and then find the book and flipping through. It's like me with my research, and like when I'm writing, I'm on the computer. I write on the computer, but I'm researching every day that I'm writing. So I make these books as authentic as possible. So like, just take book 1, although I've been to Oxford, I don't quite remember it. And so it's like, if they're at Christ Church or something, I'm pulling up pictures, I'm doing the 360, I'm enlarging, and I'm literally describing what the building looks like. I'm pulling up maps. I'm looking at the streets. I'm pulling up research and history, but I'm doing it like this. You know what I mean? I'm not spending hours, because that takes away from the writing and stuff. It's so fast. And I do appreciate that part of it. And one could argue, is there less quality in it? I'd say not really. It's because like, you lose the focus of going to the library and researching for, I don't know what, 3 lines in your book. Now, some
Right.
authors, and this I actually did an interview earlier on His Glory with Jordan Oliver. I don't know if you know her. You should get on her show. You would be perfect. We can talk about that later. But we were talking about, about that. But I was also thinking about Dickens, and this is a good question. So, like you take someone like Charles Dickens and stuff, and everything was written. Of course, they didn't even have a typewriter. But if Dickens had a computer or laptop, would he had written more books, and would his books have been better or not? And I can go either way with it, because it's like, most of the thing, paper was expensive, ink was expensive, and you look at some of their original drafts, and it's not like the whole thing's crossed out, but ideas and things crossed out. But I think they thought a lot of their story out in their mind and wrote it down. And so I don't know. I don't have that answer. I don't think anyone does. Would he have
Wow.
written better? Would he have written more books? Or would it have damaged it? You know what I mean? Would it
That's
become
really
too many books? In Dickens' case, it might have become too many, because he was paid by the word and the sentence. And so that's why some of his books are a little bit lengthy. He's one of my favorite authors, so I have really no criticism. I'm just saying it's like sometimes they can be layered and thick with words, but he was paid per word.
right.
And so, yeah. But anyway,
Interesting.
and he was like one of the most popular authors at the time, most successful.
Right. I was going to ask you, what is your goal and purpose or mission with the book series? I know there's the educational aspect and you want to refine literature, but personally, what's your goal and mission with the book series and the film?
Yeah, and we'll come back to the movie. I've got the script, so we can talk about that. I hadn't forgotten. But yeah, and one goal, really, what we're doing right now with literature is we're elevating literature to the next level. And what happens is we're setting a new bar for what's accepted as real and good literature, and it takes time. But kids will start reading Britfield Lost Crown series, and I'm already seeing it, and I know this for a fact. We're getting feedback, and they're connecting to it because it's fun, it's exciting, it's feeding their soul, not stimulating their mind. It's stimulating their mind, but you know what I mean? Like, I look at the stuff that's out there right now as McDonald's. At first it tastes really good and smells really good, and then after you eat it, it's like just ugh, right? And it damages your body. In this case, it damages your soul. And so we're feeding their soul, we're feeding their mind, we're stimulating them, we're elevating them, we're challenging their creativity, we're giving them stories that are relevant with real characters they can relate to. Now, when they go back and they read Harry Potter, they see it for the silliness that it is, because it's silly. And I'm seeing that. It's just like, well, Tom didn't have a wand when he had this problem. Tom and Sarah had to figure it out, or they had to think it out, or they discussed it. And I remember that. And it's just like, they didn't have some spell. They couldn't take a magic cloak and make themselves invisible, or he couldn't just take this pill and suddenly have superpowers. And so what it's going to be doing is it's distilling the nonsense out there, and we're elevating literature. And the rest of the literature will have to come up to that level, or it will fade away. And it's going to be the same thing with Hollywood. We believe that the first Britfield Lost Crown movie will be one of the most successful films. Do you want prophecy? I'm telling you right now, the first Britfield movie will be one of the most successful films in cinematic history. We're going to break box office records. Hollywood, which doesn't even exist anymore, won't even know it hit it. And you're going to see the type of lines around the theaters that you did in 1977 with the first Star Wars movie.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because we've created this story that is so fun, so exciting, so heartfelt, so everything that you would expect in a movie, right? But Hollywood can't and never will and never can do. And I really look at, and I'm a historian too, and I've been studying Hollywood for 50 years or 40 years. So I know it all. I know it inside and out. I think, and I love some great films out of Hollywood, but from filmmaking. Let's put it that way. But it's almost like the good ones were mistakes. You know what I mean? Because 99% of everything that comes out of Hollywood is absolute shite. It's crap. It's filth. It's disgusting. It's degrading. I hate profanity. I hate films with profanity. There's never, ever, ever a need for profanity. I don't care if you're trying to be cool and authentic and edgy because it's two New York cops and this is how they talk. We don't need to hear that crap. And people don't talk like that all the time. That's an excuse. That's sloppy, lazy writing, or any nudity. Never, ever does there need to be nudity. Well, it's because of no. Shut it.
Right.
So, but you get movies like The Sound of Music, one of my favorite, or The Great Escape with Steve McQueen, classic, or Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams, one of my favorites. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. The author of the book said, well, that's not how I wrote it. Of course you didn't, because you would have damaged it and ruined it. So you have, I call them almost mistakes, classic mistakes. Movies that were great, that were hallmarks, The Blind Side. You know, when the studio did The Blind Side for $30 million and it went on to make $500 million worldwide, and I'm not just talking about the box office, but in DVDs and everything, wouldn't you think that they captured something about this sort of family friendly? What did they do next? They did like some kind of slasher film. It's just like, it's an accident. You know what I mean? Because this is the thing too about that you need to know about filmmaking. Number one, if you take an R movie and you make it into a PG-13, you make more money. If you take a PG-13 movie and you make it into a PG movie, you make more money. Every profanity word you remove from a movie, you make more money. Every nude scene that you get rid of in a film, you make more money. And family-friendly, family-oriented, family-focused films is the largest market in the world.
That's right.
You know, and so, and they know that. Hollywood knows that. Hollywood wasn't created to entertain and inspire you. It was to degrade you. And that's a fact. It's not to say that everybody in Hollywood's bad. Of course not. 95% of them are just trying to make a paycheck. You know what I mean? But it's the demons that are behind the scenes, the demons that control it, the demons that are funding it. That just, how many times you watched a movie and it's like almost great, and then there's the nude scene? You know what I mean? You're like, what the frick was that? You know what I mean? Or it's the profanity. You're like, gosh, I wanted to recommend that to somebody, but it's got those 3 F-bombs in it. The whole movie existed for those F-bombs. The whole movie existed for that one nude scene. So it would so you see it and you get it into your imagery. Fact, you know, so anyway.
Right. It's a spiritual war. And the Lord was showing me years ago, he said, I'm going to make Hollywood Holywood. And he said, I'm raising up my remnant with their sword, shield, and buckler, and they're going to take over the airwaves. And I said, it was like in 2008. I said, but Lord, Hollywood's not holy. And he said, true, but I'm going to raise up my people. And so I really believe there's a revival of the airwaves and that we're taking back the land. That doesn't mean Hollywood is going to be good, but we're bringing the good into Hollywood. And, you know, just like Paul Crouch of Trinity Broadcasting Network, I was a TV host there I worked with them for over 7 years. I was on the front lines of the Christian youth channel, Juice TV, which is a Christian music channel, the like baby channel under TBN. They have 25 networks under Trinity Broadcasting. And I remember Paul Crouch, he used to get criticized for going into television as a Christian. And he said, well, if we don't take over the airwaves, then who will? And I know people have their opinions of Christian television and whatnot, but my question would always be to the backlash, where's your network?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's so easy to criticize, but it's
what
like,
are you doing?
How are you expanding God's kingdom? And, you know, of course they're not they were not perfect people, but, you know, Matt and Lori Crouch are great people, and they're bringing the gospel message to the airwaves. And there's different types of talents that God gives to people. He gives us an entrustment of talents. And so what we do with those talents is actually our gift back to God too, is how we live our life and how we are stewarding. And your last name's Stewart. Stewarding the gifts, and you've been stewarding these gifts for years and years and years, but the Lord is going to give you your harvest. I truly believe it's such an honor to have you on my program, because I do know that this is on the precipice of just expanding in such a great, marvelous way for God's glory, and also because you're humble. You know, you're not looking at it like, oh, look at me and look at what I did, you know, and you've done your work, you've done your research, and you have attention to detail, which I really respect and I really admire. When I see people that operate in the spirit of excellence, it just inspires me so much. Like when I started reading your book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This is so juicy. Like I want to read more, you know? And I was just like, cause I'm a creative too. And I love, you know, I'm not only a singer songwriter, but I do like to edit, and I love photography and film, and I love history as well. So I could just see the different facets of what you were incorporating in your writing, and how exciting it must be too for like a young person to get that. And it's a revival. It's a revival of the airwaves. It's a revival of the movie industry. It's a revival, you know, even for me is in music. I've done a few hundred songs for television for A&E, Bravo, and Lifetime for like different reality shows and things. And the Lord was saying, like, you know, your voice is going to shift the airwaves. It's the voice like Esther's voice, for such a time as this, she spoke up for truth. She spoke up for her people. And so everyone in the kingdom of God, if we speak the truth in love, the truth sets people free. And God's restoring liberty in America, faith, family, and freedom. And so, not just in America, but worldwide, but
Yes.
specifically because we're from America, we are a light to the nations. And Hollywood is in America. So that's why we are so influential. And the Lord was showing me Queen Esther was in the peak of the most influential location, which was in Persia. And so she was like on the precipice of basically like a very influential province. And so, she spared many, many Jewish people's lives because that was her heritage. And she was actually an orphan too. So there was just so many things like God, he says, love the orphan, the widow, the poor, and the
Yeah.
fatherless. And so I think that is really inspiring. And like, I can only imagine what the film is going to be like. And I mean, I want to go back to when I asked about the feedback. I already know you have had over 40 plus awards given to you, correct?
Yes. Yeah. For the book series. Yeah, it's incredible too. I mean, and we'll ramp that back up because it takes time. I had someone that was working on that full time, which means you have to submit your book to all these different places. You have to pay a fee. Sometimes it's $150, $200. I mean, so it's like sometimes you're not you can't qualify. Sometimes you're qualified. Sometimes you miss the deadline. So it's there's like a lot into it. Yeah, I mean, our goal is to be the most awarded series in fiction. And I believe so, because I think what's going to happen is once we open up worldwide, I mean, I believe we'll be receiving awards from Poland and from France and from
Absolutely.
Italy and Slovakia, and I don't care where it comes from. It's like I've said a long time ago, I don't care where our first 10 million, our first 10 million books could be in Hungary. That's fine with me. I don't care. It's like everyone's all like, United States, this is our Truman bubble, and I'm like, it's just a country. The United States for us for the Britfield series was our soft launch. It was our pilot program. And as of July of this year, just last month, last week, we went global. And so for the last 5.5 years, everything I talked about with the series, things that we're doing, we'll talk about the movie because it's worth it. And we also adapted the Britfield series into a theatrical play. We've got television programs in the works right now.
That's right.
All of that was a soft launch. And so it took about 5.5, 6 years. We've just pivoted in July. It's funny, too, because I hate July. July is my worst month because everyone's sleeping, right? Everyone's on vacation or mentally on vacation. It drives me nuts. But it's also like, I'm like, let's counter like July. You know what I mean? Like, I just hammer July. So like I made July my pivoting point. Right. But yeah, now we're going global. We just launched in Britain. We have a British distributor. We just launched in Britain in June.
Congratulations.
Yeah, with the trilogy, right? So we're rolling out across Britain. It's just too cool. And then we had a publicist that we hired, a team, and they were rocking it for 4 weeks. And then we got another marketing campaign we're rolling out August 15th in Britain. And we're just about to lock in the international rights for South Korea, for Japan.
Wow.
2 weeks ago, I talked to my literary agent, a major publisher in India. It loves the series. It is interested in purchasing the international rights. We have over 18 other countries interested in purchasing the international rights, which means the way that a book gets translated is it's not the publisher. Like Random House doesn't publish 50 different versions in different languages. They'll sell the rights to a top publisher in France, the international rights, and then that publisher in France will translate the English book into French. And our first beachhead was Poland. And so all 3 books have already been translated into Polish. How cool is that?
So neat. I mean, I just feel like the sky's the limit. I feel like God's going to do Ephesians 3:20 beyond what you could ever ask, think, dream, or imagine. And I love how in the beginning, when you were telling me, when I asked you when you first came up with this, I mean, can you imagine if you just thought, similar to how I'm sure Walt Disney, when, he first drew the Mickey Mouse ears. It makes me think about, he could have said, this is just a silly little idea. What am I thinking? But like, also, I know obviously Disney and Walt Disney probably was not a perfect person. I know Disney's really woke and we need to pray for revival. I always pray for God to raise up new writers, directors, producers, and films, and also creative kids content as well. So you are an answer to prayer. But I was going to say, what makes me think about, your first initial drawing, like look at what God's done with what you did on that first piece of paper. Like
Crazy.
how incredible does that, like, have you ever thought of it like that?
I was thinking about it the other day actually, and I'm like wondering. I'm like, do I still have that? Because how cool would that be? I know I must have that
Right.
somewhere, that piece of paper, because it's like that's like classic. That's how this whole thing started. Like,
And you
but
can
it is
use it
interesting.
yourself,
It is
you
interesting
know?
because like it was that weekend that I was at friend's house in her kitchen at night, just fixing dinner or something, and that's literally when I had the revelation that this would be a actually in the terms that came to my mind with this is going to be $1 billion media empire.
Right.
How crazy is that though? I mean, where would that come from? Like from a doodle, like I mean really, and 3/4 of a page bullet points. But I did have that vision, thank God, that has been, if you will, that driver, the wind in my sails, because it's like,
Yeah.
it took over 10 years to finally launch it. That's a long time, a decade,
And he
and
says,
it
yeah,
cost about everything. Yeah.
I was gonna say this reminds me of a scripture, Habakkuk 2, write down the vision and make it plain. God
Mm.
actually tells us to write down our visions. And some people say Habakkuk, but I say Habakkuk. I don't know exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it according to, the Old Testament. But it is interesting, like when you write something down, it comes to life, right? And one thing that I was going to say about Disney, that I don't really know how strong his faith was. I actually have a friend, Andrew Ford Nod, who I think you would really love him. His father actually directed the Pat Boone show,
Hmm.
and I call him the next Walt Disney because he's so brilliant. He's writing a lot of different books too, and has a lot of creative ideas. And he's been in the industry for a long time. But like, you know, he actually is writing a book about the top like 50 influencers who were Christian.
Hmm.
And so it's really interesting because
That would be very interesting.
I think Disney is Christian. I think he
No,
was Christian, or I
he was
don't
a
know.
Mason. No, he was a 33-degree Mason.
I didn't know about
Yeah.
that.
No, no. I mean, I wouldn't bring him up. He's as dark as it gets. So, and Disney World is a whole other
Well, yeah, I know about Disney World now.
conversation. But no,
There's
Disney was no Christian. But
there's more
you know,
being exposed
yeah,
about all the whole industry, and I think it's to remodel, Hollywood. But what I was going to say is, like, imagine if he didn't go forward with his first drawing of Mickey Mouse and like
sure.
all the different series, and so I believe God's going to use people like you to remodel the industry and reform, like a reformation, reform
Yes.
the books and literature and media. And I was going to say this, in 2008 the Lord also showed me there was a purity movement coming, and that people were getting sick and tired of the filth and the debauchery, and the Lord said time's up. And actually,
Mm,
Mary Crawley, I know you were on her program. I used to go to Radiance House of Prayer, and we used to have a worship night on Wednesday nights for like
wow.
3 or 4 years. We were worshiping and praying for Hollywood for
Wow.
years. And I just remember she was even praying about like her movies and stuff. This was before her podcast, really
Sure.
expanded and everything. So it's just so interesting. Like literally the last times we were there, I think was in 2020, like before the pandemic. Like,
Mm,
and I even prayed, I was like, God, shut it down. It needs to be like remodeled.
yes.
We need to remodel all of this. Like people aren't listening. They're not repenting. Like, but it was a reset, but in a good way. I know there's
Yeah.
like a great reset, but
There's a
yeah,
lot going on behind the scenes up there, in a good way, and lots of stuff being cleaned up, and lots of changes. But again, too, it's like I look at I hate using that term now, Hollywood. I just call it filmmaking. And they
right,
and in many ways, that as they always do, they hijacked the beautiful artwork of filmmaking.
right,
And again, it's like Sound of Music, one of my favorite movies. It's like it's the 5th highest grossing film in history
right.
ever. Um, people, I did like I read 3 books on it because I just loved it. And it's just like, and I'm not a musical guy either, but I mean, it's like, come on, it works as a story,
Right.
this rebellious woman that's trying to be a nun that will never be a nun, and this captain that lost his wife and is running his house like a ship. You know what I mean? And you bring them together. It's like just pure conflict, but it's just a wonderful story. And then you throw in Salzburg. Oh my gosh, I've been there twice. I've been both locations. where they shot the back of the house and the front of the house. It looks exactly the same. If you ever want to go
Really?
to Salzburg, yeah,
I used
you
to watch
walk.
it when I was younger, and I need to rewatch it because it's been a long time. But my
Oh,
mom used to play that for me all the time when I was younger.
yeah, the scene where she's walking down that path towards the house, and it's that yellow wall, and there's the gate and the fountain in the house, exactly the same, still
Wow.
there. Back of the house, exactly the same on the lake. Anyway, but really, it's just like they've hijacked it. They hijacked
Yep.
the wonderment of writing. You know what I mean? You go back to like C.S. Lewis and Narnia, great. You know, like Charles Dickens, David Copperfield,
Right.
the Great Expectations, just good books, great books, based on reality, based on real stories, based on real characters, based on real things that were happening with kids, with orphans, with working kids, working 70
Right.
hours a week, exposing it. Good novels, good stuff, and then you fast forward now, and it's just like, look at the stuff that's out there. Just it's shite, and it's crap. And 50 Shades of Grey. Are you kidding me? My
Right.
I have two literary agents. One's for rights agents, but my literary agent actually read it, the manuscript when it came, and it was like it was not only the subject horrible, it's just terribly written, and it's just like
Yeah,
that's what we've come
everything's
to.
getting
Yeah,
it's getting really woke, but the Lord is going to wake people up in the midst
yeah,
of the wokeness. He's going to awaken. And so I want to ask, we're pretty much wrapped pretty soon, but I wanted to ask you if the film is in the works, is it in pre-production? When can we expect to see the movie in theaters or online? Or do you have any
yeah.
news on that?
Yeah, so here's this is the finished third draft, final polished movie script, and so this is 15 months worth of work. It was finalized in March of this year. Uh,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. We've been and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is.
No,
And
yeah.
you're familiar with the film industry, but it's like having finished architectural plans for your house. You can talk all day about what you want, but we cannot move forward with the first piece of wood until we have the finished architectural plans, and that's what a great script's all about. It's all about story, and that's why you see so many movies fail. That they kind of have the beginning of it, and it's like, oh, it'll work itself out. It'll never work itself out. It'll be a disaster unless it's written out. And really, you should have a perfect story, and then it gets better. But anyway, so we've been in development for the film. I've got a great producer team. The father's been associated with Hollywood and in the industry for 40 years and knows everybody. And his son, Sam, who I'm working with, I'm actually talking to him today at 4:30, and we're about 4 weeks away from moving into pre-production of the first movie. And if all goes well, we'll be filming in England next spring, and we'll probably have a launch date of November 2026. It won't be past that, but just the way that I was hoping it was going to be November next year, but I'm tired of pushing it. So,
I understand.
but the beauty of it is once it's on track, and my main focus next week, literally for the next 6 months, will be the film. I've been trying to finish book 4. I just finished it Monday of last week. I had to work on the maps for 2 days. I had to work on the website, pre-order campaign. We just finished the cover last week. I mean, just like, it's like that's 18 months worth of work. And it's not that things aren't moving with the film, and Sam, the producer, is not doing stuff. It's just, it's getting that out of the way. And so we should be shifting into pre-production in the next 4 weeks. You'll start to see stuff come out in the news, in the media, and it's gonna be exciting because we're gonna spend 18 months marketing the movie globally, worldwide,
Wow.
prior to its release, and we're gonna start doing teaser trailers and stuff that is gonna excite the world and ignite this powder keg. And I'll be on a global tour. We're planning on a tour now in Britain next year, just because of everything that's happening right now in the next couple of months. One wants to be safe, but so in March of next year we'll start probably a 4 to 6 week tour in Britain, and then in fall we'll be doing Eastern Europe for 8 weeks, as Poland is our beachhead for 3 weeks, going to schools, book signings, media, and then Asia, and then South America. So it's going to be a worldwide Britfield book tour and movie tour in preparation of the release of the film. So
You are on fire. I love it. You're just so inspiring and motivating. And I'm
thank you.
just so honored that you came onto my program because you're going to be a busy man. And I don't know if you're
I
going to
know.
be taking many more interviews except for maybe on some major platforms. I'm seeing like the Today Show. I'm seeing, man, it's going to be something.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I've been enjoying doing the interviews, and we're on sort of a media campaign, probably 100 over the next until Christmas of this year. But I'll be honest, after that, set aside for my friends like you, I won't be doing many more. And it doesn't matter who it is. I don't care if it's good, Good Morning America or whatever. It's like, like talk to somebody else.
You're going to be
But
busy.
yeah, but you're the media that counts. You guys are
And
the
you have
so,
this focus, like you have a purpose behind it,
yes.
and I want to ask you, do you have any advice for parents, teachers, or young people who are interested in fiction, and how can they find you online? But first, the advice, if they want to get
Yeah,
into writing or filmmaking, or can you share?
yeah. I think anything of quality takes time. So any of these overnight successes you've seen are fake. Anyone that tells you it's easy is lying or selling you something. Again, I'm serious that the difference between a hobby and a profession is about 10,000 hours or a decade, 10 years.
Yep.
Even for like script writers, they say, when you're ready to start, write eight movie scripts and then pick your best. It's not, and unfortunately, you're in that Christian world, and there's a lot of mediocrity there. You're talking
Right.
about the spirit of excellence, and it's just like Christians should be doing it better than anyone in the industry, not less, not lazy, not preaching to the choir, not crap acting, not crap. Well, I only had or excuse after excuse after excuse. Find the people you need. I'm tired of seeing the writer, director, producer, all the same guy. And I want $5 million to make my movie about a Christian baseball player. Really? Who's
Right.
going to come and see that? Nobody. You're bad steward of your money.
Right.
So, find the people out there. There are so many talented people. And you're right. We're in a creative revolution right now. We're in a new renaissance. That's a fact. We're in an educational reformation. We've gone from 5 million to almost 20 million homeschoolers in the last 5 years. How exciting is that? Yeah, so a lot of things are changing. But as far as writing, it's two things I learned about writing: write about what you know and write about what you love. And I love England. I lived there for off and on for 2 years as a British literature major. I love Dickens and Lewis and Austen, and all of that. And so that's what Britfield was based on in a sense. That's what inspired me and stuff. So don't write what you think you should write or what you think is popular, because all that's crap anyway. Write about what you know, write about what you love. And be authentic and be real, and don't try to copy somebody else. It's okay to be influenced by someone else. I read lots of novels and books, and I got an idea here, an idea there, but don't copy, because we already have that author. Trust your instinct, trust your
Right.
style, get feedback. Build a team around you. And when I say team, just a mentor, someone that's already an author that could give you some insight, or can give you some feedback, or read your first 3 or 4 pages, and before you write anything, outline your story. Because it's like, if you start, this is the difference of sitting down and you just start writing. It's like you and I, we're going to go on a road trip, and we're starting in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and we're going to take a road trip for four weeks. And you're like, Chad, where are we going? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's just get in and start driving. That's writing without a lead, without a strategy, without a roadmap.
Right.
Look at your outline, your story outline, as literary architectural plans for your book. Beginning and an end. It's really important to have both those. Those are your bookmarkers. You need to know where you're going. Now, your end can change, but you need to know where you're going. So if I say, hey, we're taking off from Scottsdale, and we got 3 weeks, and we're going to drive to Boston. Good. We got a beginning and an ending.
Right.
Where are we going to stop along the way? Those are your chapters. So when you outline your book, you don't have to sit there and have every line, every scene, because you're not writing lines. You're just writing the scenes. I spent 4 months just on the outline for book 4 months. And when I was finished, I had 4 pages in 4 months. And every bullet point was a scene. But it was a very specific scene, and I knew who was in it, and I knew why it was there. And I might have had a couple lines, a couple threads and stuff. But once I sat down and I started to write it, I didn't hit roadblocks. I didn't hit a wall. I knew exactly where I was going, because I already figured it all out. It's like front loading. It's harder at first, but then it makes the writing experience a lot better.
Wow. That's fantastic advice. I'm blown away. How many books do you have in the series total completed? And then how many do you anticipate to continue to write within the Britfield series? if you don't mind sharing that.
No, yeah. So there's 4 done now with Britfield in the Eastern Empire as of Monday. It's with my editor now. And
Congratulations.
yeah, actually, I had sent her 3 weeks ago. I'd sent her the first 180 pages of the manuscript so she could get a start on it, right? And then that way,
Smart.
I'm not waiting longer. Tricks that you learn. But yeah, so there's 4 of the 7 book series. So there'll be 7 in total. So the next book is in Asia, starting in South Korea.
So you have 7. And then after this book, my other question is, do you plan on writing additional series, or are you strictly just going to focus on Britfield as of right now?
I think Britfield, I don't have anything. It's very interesting. Every author's different. Some already know their whole story and how it ends. I don't. I just know every book as I come into it, like, and which is, I think, in some way kind of good, because there's nothing,
You're focused.
You never know. Yeah. You never know where the story is going to go either as you're reading it, meaning it's not predictable. And
so it's very adventurous.
I'm not telegraphing anything. That was the word I was looking for. And at least for 7 books, I did think that once the series is done, ends in the United States, Tom and Sarah are now 18 years old, and that's the 7th book of the series. I could continue the series where they're going on their own adventures now, which would be kind of fun. And I did think one to India would be incredible, or one to like Egypt and South Africa. Right. But it's separate. It's like the whole 7-book series, because they build on each other. It's not like they're separate stories like the Hardy Boys or something. It continues. It's like 6 months later, and it's like the story continues and the characters are growing, and there's always the same goals and stuff. So it's this long trajectory of stories, but in every book they're 1 year older, and it's really important too at that age, because 12 to 13 is very different, right? 13 to 14 is very different. 14 to 15. I had so much fun with Tom and Sarah as 15-year-olds in book 4, because they're exactly how I was at 15. You know what I mean? They're a little bit ornery, kind of getting into trouble, making decisions they shouldn't be making, willing to take a few risks, not taking good advice from the adults, and then paying the price for it. But all done in a very real way and almost comical way, and it's really cool, and I had a lot of fun, and so in 16 will be cool, and 17, and then 18, and as they mature. So.
And then I just have a couple more questions.
Yeah, real quick, actually, if you look at.
But I was going to ask you, how can someone purchase a hard copy book or ebook? I know I put the website up several times, but is there a specific place?
Yeah, Britfield.com, Britfield, Britfield.com. That's the best place to, if you buy it through Britfield.com, you'll get a signed copy, and I'm not going to be doing many more signed copies. So that's kind of cool. What's interesting too is, of this year, we had to update book 1 and 2, because in book 1, we referenced the Queen. And now that the Queen is dead, we had to change it and reference the royals, because I didn't want the books dated, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
But it's kind of cool, because all those to me are collector's items,
Totally.
And but I was going to say real quick, if you look at book 1, if you could pull that up, and look at the kids on the. Can you pull that up? Book 1.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I was just going to show you real quick. It's kind of fun. Just the front cover. Yeah. So there's there's Sarah. There's Tom, a little young 12-year-old, and then if you could pull up book 4, Britfield in the Eastern Empire. Look at him now. It's really cool. There's Tom.
Wow, that is.
And there's Sarah, and I'm not going to give away who the other one is.
Don't give us. Yeah. Don't tell us.
But it's just like, look at that. I mean, look at the maturity of it, and they're.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah. So.
I'm so excited for you, and so honored to have spoken to you today. Thank you so much for coming onto the program, and I appreciate your wisdom, your diligence. I just appreciate your focus. Writing a book, let alone several, is not an easy task. I thank you for operating such a spirit of excellence, and for bringing an alternative to children and the youth who are bombarded with these negative messages day and night. And as I mentioned, I can't wait to read the series. I can't wait for my son to read the series. I love how you are so detailed. And one thing I want to mention to the listener right now, as we wrap up, is that if you go to his website, you can actually get the first 2 chapters for free to read as kind of a sneak peek. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And not only that, do you have also did you say something about maps? Are there maps inside of the book?
Oh yeah, there's maps in every book, which is kind of cool. like I just had to do the 5 for book 4. So it's Eastern Europe, and then there's a map of Vienna, there's a map of Prague, map of St. Petersburg, and a map of Moscow, Russia, which is really cool. And then like book 1 has 5 maps in it. So it's really cool because it's geography is such a low scoring in schools. Kids don't even know where, Washington, D.C. is, or Maine, or North Dakota, let alone another country. But, it's just got these really cool maps. There's England, and then the next scene is Oxford University. So we've got this really cool map, at Oxford University. So it's really fun for kids to be able to kind of look back and forth and, oh yeah, okay, there's High Street, and oh, there's where Christ Church is, and gets them engaged, and it gets them thinking. And all of it is just to whet their appetite to do deeper digging. But what's great about the website is we have interactive maps. We have over 400 pictures of England. So everywhere where book 1 takes place, you can actually visually experience it on the website.
Wow, incredible. Well, thank you, Chad, for coming on today. I'm so honored to have you, and we appreciate your time. And we are going to keep our eyes open for the 4th book, as well as the film. Well, actually, the 7 books, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So I just want to say thank you for standing in the gap for the youth and for being so hands-on. Keep up the good kingdom work, because that's what this podcast is all about. Building God's kingdom in Hollywood, which I call Holywood. And I hope that I can chat with you when your film comes out at some point. And so you guys go to Britfield.com and make sure you find him. Do you have any social media platforms that the readers can connect with you?
Yeah, we have our Facebook, which you can click on through the website, and I think X or Twitter, whatever it's called, and Instagram. And so we're not huge into social media, but we do post things on there and some updates. And I think once we get moving on the road, especially with the film, will be a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of stuff and behind the scenes snippets and some trailers and some cool stuff.
I like your interactive I like your video that you have on your main website. It's very intriguing. I like the animation on that. And then what about BritfieldInstitute.org? Is that something
that's our nonprofit focused on bringing creativity back to the classroom, inspiring reading, and focus on entrepreneurship.
Fantastic. I want to honor your time and wrap up the show. So I just want to remind the listener really quick, please visit hollywoodnetwork.org, and you guys can follow us and like us on rumble.com at Christy Given, and we will be seen on frankspeech.com. We thank you guys for tuning in. This show will also be on Spotify, so you guys can listen to the MP3 version if you are unavailable to watch it via video. And also you can follow us on social media at Hollywood Network at Christy Given. Thank you guys for supporting. You can also go to mypillow.com/Christy Given and mystore.com/Christy Given. Use the code 4% off, and you can use Christy Given, all one word. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in. God bless you, and God bless America. And thank you again, Chad. I can't say thank you enough. It really
Thank you. It was an honor. Yeah.
So fun to have you on today. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.